I used to think happiness was something I needed to chase, something I could find if I worked hard enough, smiled often enough, or appeared strong enough. I thought happiness lived in achievements, in people, in moments that looked perfect from the outside. But with time, I realized that what I was chasing was not happiness. It was noise. And sometimes, real happiness is found only when the noise fades away. I live in London now, a city that never truly sleeps. The streets are always busy, filled with people rushing toward something. Maybe success. Maybe love. Maybe the next opportunity. For years, I was one of them. I used to walk quickly, talk quickly, and think quickly. Every morning, I looked in the mirror and told myself, "You have to do better today." But every night, I went to bed with a feeling that something was missing. It wasn't money. It wasn't comfort. It was peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't depend on anything around you. I remember one rainy evening, standing by the window of my small apartment. The street lights reflected in the puddles, and I watched strangers walk by holding their umbrellas. I realized how many people looked exactly how I felt, busy, distracted, tired, and quietly unhappy. That night, I asked myself a question I had never dared to ask before. What if happiness is not something to find, but something to feel? That question changed everything. The next morning, I did something different. I slowed down. I didn't rush through my coffee. I didn't check my phone right after waking up. I just sat there, breathing, listening to the soft sound of rain tapping against the window. And for the first time in years, I felt something small but real, calm. It was a strange feeling, because for so long, I had believed happiness needed to be loud. I thought it was made of laughter, music, celebrations, and dreams coming true. But that morning, I realized that real happiness was often quiet, gentle, simple, almost invisible. As days went by, I started noticing more quiet moments. The way sunlight touched my desk when I was reading, the sound of footsteps on wet pavement, the warmth of tea between my palms, the smile of a stranger at a coffee shop. Little things. Tiny things. But these were the moments that made me feel alive. I began to understand that happiness was never hiding from me. I was just too busy to see it. So I made a decision. To stop chasing and start noticing. To stop trying to control everything and start letting life breathe. That's when my life began to change. I started journaling every night, writing down not what went wrong, but what went right. Even if it was something small, like the air smelled fresh after rain, or I laughed at my own mistake today. It felt awkward at first, but slowly it became a habit. Through those words, I started to see patterns, little moments of gratitude that had always been there, waiting for me to notice them. The truth is, we often search for happiness in the future because we're too scared to look at the present. We say things like, "I'll be happy when I get that job. I'll be happy when I lose weight. I'll be happy when I meet the right person." But the future is just a promise. And promises can change. The present, though, it's real. It's where life actually happens. When I realized this, I stopped running from silence. Silence used to make me uncomfortable. Now it feels like home. Because in silence, I can finally hear myself. I started walking alone through Hyde Park every weekend. At first, it felt lonely. But then, slowly, I started noticing the world around me. The sound of birds, the rhythm of footsteps, the laughter of children, the wind brushing through the leaves. It was as if life had been whispering to me all along, but I had been too loud to hear it. And that's when it hit me. The quiet truth about real happiness is that it never demands attention. It doesn't need to be announced. It just needs to be felt. Happiness, I realized, is not a goal. It's a way of being. It's not something you reach. It's something you live. Once I began to understand this, my relationships changed too. I stopped expecting people to make me happy. Instead, I learned to share happiness with them. When someone smiled, I smiled back. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. When someone hurt me, I didn't respond with anger. I tried to understand that people often act from their own pain. And when I failed, I forgave myself because happiness also means kindness to others and to yourself. As days turned into months, something inside me softened. I began to look at life not as a race, but as a rhythm. something I could move with instead of against. Every morning, I tried to do one small thing that made me feel grounded. Sometimes it was sitting quietly with my tea. Sometimes it was reading a few lines of a book that made me think. Other days, it was just opening the window and letting the fresh air touch my face. Those moments didn't make my life perfect, but they made it real. And I realized, real happiness doesn't come from removing pain or avoiding sadness. It comes from learning how to live with them. There are still days when I feel lost. Still moments when my mind feels heavy or uncertain. But instead of asking, why is this happening to me? I now ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? That small shift changes everything. Because sometimes sadness isn't a punishment. It's an invitation to rest, to think, to grow. And even though I used to believe happiness was a permanent feeling, now I see it's a gentle balance. A dance between joy and calm, between laughter and quiet. It's not the absence of problems, it's the presence of peace. I remember one afternoon, I was sitting near the river in London. The water was still, reflecting the sky like glass. A little child was playing nearby, laughing as the wind tried to steal his hat. His laughter was pure, free from expectation, free from reason. And in that moment I thought, this is it. This is happiness. Not a big achievement. Not a perfect life. Just a simple moment that asks for nothing, but gives everything. I smiled to myself, realizing that we spend half of our lives searching for what has been with us all along. I think that's the quiet truth. Real happiness is not found in noise or success or applause. It's found in the way you breathe when you are finally at peace with yourself. It's found in kindness, in gratitude, in learning to say it's okay when life doesn't go as planned. You see, I used to fill every silence with words, every pause with worry. But now, I've learned that silence can speak louder than words. It tells me when I need rest. It reminds me that not every question needs an answer right away. And it teaches me that peace begins when the mind stops fighting itself. So many people I meet are chasing something, a dream, a title, a person. They tell me they're tired. They say they just want to be happy. And I want to tell them, you already are. Because happiness is not a reward, it's a realization. When I finally understood this, I began to live differently. I stopped rushing toward goals that didn't feel like mine. I stopped pretending to be strong all the time. And I started being honest with myself. I realized that honesty brings peace. When you stop lying to yourself about what you feel, who you are, and what you need, life becomes lighter. You stop comparing. You stop competing. You simply live. There's a quiet power in accepting yourself. Not the perfect version you show the world, but the real one. The one who makes mistakes, the one who gets scared, the one who's still learning. Because happiness isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you already are. Sometimes I walk through the same streets I used to rush through years ago. But now I see them differently. The same buildings, the same lights, the same crowds. But I no longer feel lost in them. It's as if life didn't change much, but I did. I look at people running to catch their buses, and I feel a quiet compassion. Because I know that feeling. That restless search for something that's already inside you. And maybe that's what growing up really means. Not finding answers, but learning which questions truly matter. Now when people ask me, Emma, are you happy? I smile. Because the answer isn't a simple yes or no. Happiness isn't a destination I've reached. It's a path I walk every day. Some days it's easy. Some days it takes effort. But every step is worth it. If you ask me what I've learned after all these years, I'd say this. Real happiness doesn't need to be earned. It only needs to be noticed. The world tells us to keep moving, to keep achieving, to keep proving. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop. Take a breath. Look around. And realize that this simple, imperfect moment is enough. When I started understanding this truth, even my way of speaking changed. I stopped trying to impress people with perfect words. I started speaking slowly, honestly, softly, because real connection isn't built on grammar or perfection. It's built on sincerity. And that's the kind of English I want to live, not just learn. The kind that carries emotion, kindness, and meaning. I guess happiness works the same way. It's not how perfectly you live, it's how truly you live. So, if you're listening to me right now, wherever you are, maybe on a quiet morning, or a late night when your heart feels heavy, I want you to pause for a moment. Take a slow, deep breath, and tell yourself, I'm allowed to be happy. Not because everything is perfect, but because happiness isn't something that depends on perfection. It's something that grows when you start accepting your imperfections. The quiet truth about real happiness is that it's not found when life gets easier. It's found when you learn to stay gentle, even when life gets hard. So let yourself breathe. Let yourself feel. And remember, you are not behind. You are not broken. You are just becoming. If you liked this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel.